Black leadership, relationship.
We have to send a message. This is the time for us to send a message.
We always talking about what the Republicans ain't done for us or what they will do to hurt us. My life has been hurt by Democrats.
And we got in our mind that we always got to keep voting Democrat. You know,
Look and see in your community, who are the real oppressors in our community? They always talk about black on black crime. And when you hear the word black on black crime, the first thing you think of is a black man robbing you, a black man breaking in your house. And that is a black on black crime. But let's take it one step further. There's a black on black crime down in City Hall. There's a black on black crime down in all the state capitals in America, where black folks are voting against our interests, where black folks are voting and making us, we're getting poor and poor, and other groups are getting richer and richer.
everywhere you go, there's poverty in black areas.
This lot where I stand at right now, Ida Wells, public housing residents should live at. Most of the people are homeless, living in the street. And it's because of you, Mr. President.
In Detroit, where your leaders at? There's no white folks running Detroit, cutting water on black folks in Detroit. Them black folks running that city. Ain't no white folks doing that. Them black folks going along with that. Everything's happening in our community is black leadership doing this.
Our children know that if the Democrats have not done anything for us, why should they even go out and vote? What agenda is on the table that's going to change their life?
The only thing they're offering the black community is abortion on demand. This is what the president asking for us to vote for.
Now he wants to have this conversation about minimum wage raise because he knows that this is the way to get a lot of the poor people's attention. But to hell with his minimum wage raise. We don't have any jobs. A minimum wage raise for what?
They're not pushing a black agenda. They're not pushing a family agenda. They're pushing a neoliberal agenda.
Across this city, in these major democratic cities, this is what it looks like.
How can the same process happen over and over again and nobody got nothing, can't do nothing about it?
Black leadership is abusing us. The Democratic Party is abusing us.
It's the same way in every black community across the country.
And they force us into a life of welfare. We don't want no welfare. We want opportunities to go to work. We want opportunities to own business. They bailed out all of the major banks and these big investors, but left the people starving.
There are no Tea Parties in your city.
We don't have those people. We have a major democratic machine, and the majority of them, they look like me. These are the people who make sure we get nothing, but then turn around and have us to vote for them again.
They only come around when it's time for elections. When they think they can give you a toy or give you a turkey or something, and everything is good.
Hundreds of millions of dollars are coming down from the federal government. But the money is going to all these special interest groups. My brother's keeper went to his friends. This whole corrupt democratic system that gobbles up all the dollars and starves the people out. Can you all look around your community and see any change that have come about with these hundreds of billions of dollars that have come through our cities? No, you cannot. What we do see is our elected officials riding around in new cars and they have new homes.
When our people don't have jobs in our communities, when we don't have any vital resources, when all the deals been cut and all our people are left out, this is where we end up.
And we got the most important thing that we can stop all this. Everybody got to vote. And if you use your vote wisely, you can stop a lot of this stuff.
What a strong video, I tell you what. And it is a great message. And what many African Americans don't understand is how much the Democratic Party is keeping them down. I'm not saying vote Republican. I'm saying vote for the people that honestly are going to help you out of this situation. You know, Obama, a lot of those guys voted for him over his color. That's like me voting for a Caragiulo, local county commissioner, because he's Italian and speaks Italian. I wouldn't do that. You got to vote for what their position is. I put something out on my website this morning, and, you know, I touched on what the dilemma I'm facing. I want to vote for the Libertarian. I want to vote for Wiley for governor. But here's the situation. He's been shut down. All of us have been held prisoner by this two-party system. And what it does is it limits us, and you're not free. On my local radio show, I referred to this situation, and I talked about the fact that when I was in Italy, you had 10, 20 parties going for a position of a mayor, going for the position of a local council. You had the communists, you had the conservatives, you had the fascists, you had the Marxists. They were all out there, but you had a choice. You had better representation of the people, and you don't have that here. I'd love to go for Wiley, but a vote for Wiley is going to be a vote against the Republican Party and a vote for Christie, who I definitely don't want in office as a governor of Florida. And I think Florida deserves better. So what do? Do you vote along Republican lines because they are more in line with what your thoughts, your feelings are and stuff, even though they're both flip-floppers. They're both dirty. They're both working for the banksters, for corporate America. They're not out for our best interest. And I don't know if Wiley is. Wiley puts out saying he is. But it's gotten to the point where it's ridiculous, just like with the African-American community out there. You just can't go out and vote Democrat because they got a black president. You can't vote Democrat because they're going to load you up with all these entitlements. That's what they're doing. They're imprisoning you within this community, just like these guys said. Because what they're doing is they're taking away your desire to work. They're filling you with entitlements, with Obamacare, Obama phones, welfare, SNAP. And the desire to go out there and achieve is taken away, and they want to keep you down. And I just don't understand why they continue to say Democrats the way. And I'm not saying Republicans the way. I hate this two-party system. I hate it. And we're not free. We're imprisoned by the Republicans and Democrats. And a lot of people say, "Oh, you're to the right. You're to the right." I can't. A lot of the Republican stuff I can't stand. Like Bonner. Bonner's an idiot. All right, let's go ahead and get started with the show. This is the Uncensored Report. This is Frankie Abbruzzino, and I do everything. It's a one-man operation. Everything you see is me. This is a truly representative of Frank Abbruzzino. Yeah, I get going on that whole political thing, and on Saturday we have the governor and Senator Rubio coming here to Venice. And I'll probably go to it just to see what's happening and to report on it. But I am not a fan of this two-party system. And I just wish there were those other options. I wish we had the ability to come together and say, let's tear down this two-party system. Let's tear it down. Let's do something that better represents the people out there. But until we do, we're going to be stuck. A couple news items. Let's go ahead and just look at the big board, what's out there. On the big board, warrant issued after Democrat Senator husband was caught stealing Republican campaign signs. I think it's a federal penalty to do that. It happens a lot. You always hear about signs disappearing, getting kicked down. It's amazing out there. Top experts agree Ebola can spread via aerosols. Now the CDC is coming out and saying, well, you know what? It could basically spread if you're sneezing. It could go 3 feet or X amount of feet. I forget what I put out yesterday. And now they're saying, I just posted something, and I got to find it, where it can stay on the surface for up to 52 days. So if someone sneezes, it can stay on that surface for up to 52 days. So we're learning a lot more, and especially with the cold weather down here in Florida, it doesn't get too cold, but they're expecting a high of 70 on Saturday and in the low 40s. That's so cold weather, which Ebola will love, it'll thrive in, and it's a great concern. What will happen? Whoa. Sorry about that. What will happen when it gets colder? What will be the true impact of it? Whoa, hold on, folks. What I'm doing here, for some reason, I'm working on 2 different systems, and I was trying to get this one page to move, and for some reason I was having issues. Okay, on the Daily Beast, they talked about Earhart's fingerprint was found somewhere, and they're wondering, it has been discovered what happened to her out there. Brett Meltzer's lost history. You know what? It premieres on Friday at 10 o'clock, and this is going to be an interesting show, and it's something that I think I might end up watching. I'm really into that stuff. But they talk about things that have just disappeared. Hold on. I don't know what's going on with my sound system. They talk about things that have just disappeared out of the blue, like the flag from 9/11. He went into all these different things, like the Declaration of Independence. The original copy is lost. And so he's going to go out there with the show, and they're going to try to find some of these lost artifacts. And then they're going to offer money to anybody that can help them find out where they are, deduce what's happening on there. 50,000 missing voters, nothing seen here. It's about the race in Georgia. You already seen a lot of stuff out there about voter fraud, where you got, yesterday I saw a mummified lady that voted somehow. And a mummified lady, she's been dead for about 2 years, but somehow she voted in early elections. Obama's Syrian House of Cards, the idea that the U.S.-backed Syrian rebels defeat ISIS and force Assad to the negotiation table. I don't know if that's going to happen. And that's the Daily Beast over at Breitbart. They're talking about voter fraud deniers are out, and they have the picture of that leftist out there, Rachel Maddow. God, she really does look like a guy. You always hear Alex Jones saying, no, she looks like a guy. Well, I'm looking at her picture. That's the way she looks, folks. Here I read, he and his allies have pumped $1.3 million into Shaheen's election process or re-election bid because they're worried about Brown overtaking her. Over on WND, they're talking about the GOPs are firing back at Obama Obama's aides calling Netanyahu a chicken shit and going into that stuff like that, which you probably should not be doing. Turkish president gathers power to fulfill his Islamic Caliphate vision. The deadly Central American mosquito was found in San Diego. This is the one that transmits dengue, hemorrhagic fever. Aren't we excited about that? South America keeps on giving back to us. Ebola czar finally surfaces for the first time. And then the White House versus American voters on IDs. That's some of the stories out there. We'll see. The Americana says, study, global one-child policy not enough for sustainability. I heard something, too, on the news today. I was on Fox News where there's some, I forget the agency, but some agency's coming out and saying, you know what? 2 kids is good. When you get to 3, you get a little over your head, a little involved, and it's just another depopulation zealot putting out a message out there that, hey, you want to keep your kids to a level of 2. Don't go beyond that. Ferguson case, leak. Wilson will not be indicted, so we're going to see what happens there. That's been leaking. Probably gets the people upset, but until the official news comes out, I don't know if we'll see any riots, but we'll be watching the whole Ferguson thing, and I think I got a little story on that. How about this? A man arrested after joking with security. I'm not Muslim, am I? Okay, an accused cop killer was, this is illegal. They deported him 2 times, and he came back and killed 2 cops, and that's been in the news for a couple days there. And then finally in Telehub, they talk about has Ebola cluster already broken out within New York City, and they discuss that. They talk about the son who beheads mom, drags body from an apartment into the street, and kicks her about 20 in the head, 20 feet before jumping in front of a train. California has issued mandatory Ebola quarantine and orders that applies to anyone. And if they violate the quarantine, there's going to be possible charges brought up against them. So that's some of the headlines that are out there. Let's go ahead and get started with my news. We're going to first go into the Ferguson case, which I wanted to touch on just briefly. And let me get rid of this. Okay. And we're talking about bracing for the protest. Will there be protests? And what you got to think there might be, just the way the government is ramping up. And the way they're ramping up to it is as though it's foreshadowing that some type of activity is going to happen. And you see what's happened is the St. Louis County has spent about $172,000 since August. And they've purchased tear gas, grenades, pepper balls, and civil disobedience equipment. And the question out there is, why are they purchasing all this stuff? Why are you ramping up? And this is the police department that oversees the protest in Ferguson. And, this is Ferguson with Michael. They're coming out right now. It's been leaked that the Wilson, the officer, will be charged. So, are they ramping up for less lethal ammunition, riot gear, just in case there's some massive riots out at Ferguson? They probably need to be prepared for that because, after what happened the last time. Should they expect more of the same? Do they just want to be more prepared? Or, as some people would say, are they over-militarized? Are they over-preparing? And will just instigate the situation even further? But you got to say, St. Louis County Police made the purchases out there of several equipment, and this article breaks it down. They said they spent about $18,000 on 1,500 beanbag rounds, $6,000 and 6,000 pepper balls. Those are the paintball-style projectiles that explode with a chemical irritant when they strike the protester. They spent over $77,000 on 235 riot gear helmets, 135 shields, and 25 batons, along with about 60 shin guards. Another $2,300 was used to buy another 2,000 sets of plastic handcuffs. In addition, they estimate $50,000 has been set aside for repairs to police vehicles. If they say in this article, in the event of further unrest, the new equipment is likely to be used alongside new purchases made by the city of St. Louis. And so, you got to wonder, this military-style police response, is that what's needed out there? And that's what brought on a lot of the aggravation, a lot of the agitation that occurred last August. It attracted intense global media coverage, and it led to calls of restraints from figures such as Barack Obama, Holder. You have many protesters out there. Many antagonizers came out there, and they knew what they were doing, antagonizing the situation, and the police bid on it. Observers from Amnesty International said in a report earlier this month that an excessive police reaction to small minority of violent protesters who threw bottles in Ferguson run a risk of killing demonstrators and impinged on their human rights. And did they go too far? You heard about police out there basically threatening to shoot reporters, shying reporters off, violating some of their rights. So what's going on out there? And if they're ramping up this much more, are they going to come out with even more force? More force. The less lethal ammunition shot at crowds in Ferguson. Is this a good thing? Shooting wooden bullets, beanbags, rubber bullets. They can also result in serious injuries, folks. And what they're saying is equipping officers in a manner that's more appropriate for the battlefield may put them in the mindset of a confrontation with the people. A mindset of conflict is inevitable. And is that what we really want out there with Ferguson? And should we be concerned about what's happening out there and the levels that they're getting prepared to go at out there with the riots? Now, they have some people that have come out. I don't agree with this. They're calling for national police guidelines after Ferguson, and I just don't think we need a national popo. But they're using this alleged force, excessive force by the police in restraining crowds and the journalist in August as a call for federal guidelines to be applied to every local police force. A lot of times, do you need guidelines? Yeah, but they should know this stuff. It should be common sense guidelines that each local police force institutes. I don't think we need the federal government coming in and doing that. And whenever I hear the federal government coming in, I think of a federalized police force, which we don't want. Although we're almost there, folks. If you think about the amount of grants that are being given by Homeland Security to these police forces, the militarization they're going through, we're almost there. So you got this group, the PEN American Center, whose motto is protecting free expression. And they published this 52-page stance on Ferguson in the alleged overreaction by the police department over in Ferguson. And this is after the aftermath of Wilson shooting Michael Brown. And they said on Monday that that citizens should have the right to be protected under the Constitution, and that some human rights laws were violated, and that action must be taken. They said the use of tear gas, pepper spray, attack dogs, rubber bullets, snipers, and all that stuff was a bit excessive to be used against the protesters. It was disproportionate, and it was it brought on a violent response from the peaceful assembly of protesters. And they went on to note some of the issues that were taken against some of the reporters out there, and it's just the overall injustice by the police force, saying it was a bit much and it caused much of the incidents that were out there. And perhaps if they would not have been so militarized, we would have had a better conclusion to the overall situation. Now, and now this isn't, if you haven't caught this, this is my sort of my rant, if you will, on police and that over excessive force, militarization. Because you got the story now out here, and who put this out here? I think it was the American. It's 24 cops in an armed military vehicle sent to loot a 75-year-old's retirement fund. And this is over in Marathon County, where police came over. They used what many of us deem excessive force to go out to this guy, this 75-year-old guy's house, Roger Hopner, and basically loot his money. He's been at odds with the local Marathon County government. He strongly disputes some fines that have been imposed on him by the county. And through multiple lawsuits and appeals to the city in a fight to use his property the way he wants to be able to use it. And they're saying, no, you can't do that. Town officials claim that the business with Hopner operates in his property is a violation of the zoning ordinance. So what they did, they came in, they confiscated a bunch of equipment, tractors, pellets, equipment, and auctioned it off for pennies on the dollar. But that wasn't good enough. Hopner still refused to remove certain equipment from his property. And the bill ran up to about $100,000. So what do? They arm 24 cops, armed vehicles, to come in and take the guy's money. And you're seeing this more and more, where police are going in and just looting funds from innocent individuals. Why? Why are we allowing this to happen, folks? Why aren't we more concerned about this type of travesty? Why isn't major media picking up stuff like this? You did have alternative media step in on this one situation, and what happened basically, I think it was in Ohio, I talked about it, where they were going to do mandatory blood checkpoints, and if they felt that you were under some type of influence, they were going to mandatory blood checkpoints. Well, it looks like they caved, because Alex Jones went out, he did a story on it. So the sheriff out there, Clark County, said, hey, we're not going to participate in this, and it was basically due to the backlash against the checkpoints, during which drivers would be forcibly have to submit to giving their blood to the police. And so basically a day before the planned checkpoint, InfoWars went out, they published a story about the no refusal checkpoint. They highlighted previous examples of how people have been forcibly strapped down, which I think I showed the video here on this show. And the scenes sort of represented what you would expect in somewhere like a communist country like North Korea or China. And so this whole story prompted many demonstrators to head out to Clark County and just warn motorists against participating in the checkpoint. So the news picked it up out there, and they credited InfoWars on the whole thing. And let me see if we could play it real quick. I don't know if we'll be able to expand it. 1 second.
When it's time to choose your Medicare plan, look no further than Retirement IQ.
All right,
Retirement IQ
folks.
team shops hundreds of Medicare options to provide trusted guidance toward your ideal health plan, all at no cost to you. Bring in the winning team at Retirement IQ.
A controversial sobriety checkpoint in Springfield might not be back.
The county held its first no refusal OVI checkpoint over the weekend.
And News Center 7's Brian Bond has talked with the sheriff about the concerns here.
A prosecutor and a nurse awaiting a warrant from a judge to draw blood from uncooperative impaired drivers, where the only difference is from this checkpoint to any other in Clark County this year.
And what we're doing is we chose to use it at this checkpoint. It's a way to make the public aware that there is an opportunity, there is exists the ability to obtain a search warrant.
464 drivers went through the OVI checkpoint Friday night. 2 people were arrested. One was given a breathalyzer, and the other, suspected of being on drugs, agreed to a blood test. No search warrants were needed, and neither actually drove through the OVI checkpoint. They were both stopped by cruisers as they turned away to avoid it.
Actually, there was 5 different turnoffs people could turn off if they didn't want to go through the checkpoint.
No refusal checkpoints are nothing new. Montgomery County had one on Wayne Avenue Friday as well. But when a libertarian radio host blogged about the one in Clark County, it got a lot of attention, drawing protesters from around the state who believe these no-refusal checkpoints are unlawful search and seizures.
It's a Fourth Amendment problem, very much so.
And if this is not a positive event, then we need to find another way to do our job, create an environment of public safety, and I'm intending to do that.
Sheriff Kelly told me today the feedback he got through emails and through social media this weekend was enough for him to decide that the Clark County Sheriff's Office will not participate in another no-refusal OVI checkpoint. Reporting from the Springfield Bureau, Brian Bondis, News Center 7.
He's not sure what happened to Brian Bondis there. Some technical issues. But you get the gist there. And what it essentially does, folks, is it says what the impact that alternative media is having out there and helping the community. Major media would never cover stories like this, although they're important. The only reason that major media, local major media, mainstream media within that city picked it up is because alternative media came to the, stepped up, brought this information to everyone's attention, and a crowd came out there. They would never have mentioned it. They would never have discussed the topic if it weren't for the crowd gathering out there and saying we need to put a stop to this. And we really do, folks. Little by little, they're taking away more and more of our rights. And I think it was on this show where I did a rant. I did a rogue rant, and basically I discussed how a lot of people sit there and say, what do I care if I'm not doing anything wrong? Let me give them my blood. And it's little bit by little bit by little bit, you're giving in until they get you to basically condition you to accept more and more and more extreme abuses of your rights, folks, until you got an RFID chip in you because of Obamacare. And like I said on my rant, if you got nothing to hide, then take down your curtains, open your windows, put a camera in your house. Everybody's got something to hide, folks. Everybody's got something to hide, and we all want our privacy. All right, we'll be right back after this message from one of my sponsors.
Is your money manager giving you safety and security? Wouldn't you like to make your money work harder for you? Then you should consider joining philsgang.com, where thousands of individual investors have successfully profited.
This year I'm up 60% on my portfolio. Following your system has been fantastic. I've been with you for about a month and a half now, and I'm already up 7%.
I've been in the business for a long time, and you're really one of the best I've ever heard.
Well, I just want to let you know what a great teacher you are.
For over a decade, philsgang.com's Phil Grandy and Donald Cogswell have been teaching, coaching, and investing right along with all Phil's Gang members.
I want to thank Donnie for market wrap. I bought 2,500 shares of AUI and sold it this morning at $820 profit.
Why not join thousands of satisfied Phil's Gang customers today? Go to philsgang.com, philsgang.com, or call 877-600-4264. That's 877-600-4264. Call today.
All right, folks, hold on 1 second. I got some kind of noise on here. There we go. All right, not sure what happened there, but I had to get rid of it. I'm having all kinds of technical issues today. Next, we're going to talk about Ebola. I'm going to show you this video real quick, and on the video, we're going to discuss Ebola and will Obama ship it into the United States. And we're looking at various issues, folks. We're looking at this document that came out yesterday as being written, being out there, where they discuss possibly bringing back non-American citizens to be treated here in the United States for Ebola. And they say it's the right thing to do. No, the right thing to do is look out for the citizens of the United States first. If we can go, bring the cures there. Bring stuff to them there. Don't import it here. Seal our southern border. So we're going to touch on that. We're also going to touch on this lady, this Hitchcock lady over in Maine. And I wanted to elaborate a little bit more on that. But first, let's go to this video. And then I'll be right back after the video. So let's get that fired up and enjoy.
It needs to be recognized by the president and by you and others in the administration that when the president says that he's going to set a time limit and then consider taking actions himself, which many of us read to be the president again repeating, I have a pen and a cell phone, and if you don't act, I will. that makes doing immigration reform harder, not easier. Because those who may like what the president decides to do administratively have less reason to negotiate the hard decisions to be made about how to enforce our immigration laws in the future. And those who do not agree with the president's position on immigration reform say, why should we negotiate if we can't trust the president to enforce the laws as they exist?
House Representative Bob Goodlatte has received information from inside President Barack Obama's administration detailing plans to ship non-U.S. citizens with Ebola into the United States to receive treatment.
If you are concerned about this problem spreading, and this is a deadly disease that we're even concerned about the great healthcare workers when they come back not spreading it, we certainly shouldn't be bringing in the patients.
Goodlatte, the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, wrote a letter to Homeland Security Secretary Jay Johnson.
I love this country. I care about the safety of our people. I believe in public service, and I remain loyal to you, Mr. President.
And Secretary of State John Kerry requesting any information on the plans, but those requests have gone unanswered. The White House also denied Goodlatte's request to impose a temporary ban on non-U.S. citizens traveling to the United States from the 3 African countries hardest hit by Ebola.
Don't panic. The news hit this morning. A Texas nurse who treated an infected patient tested positive for Ebola. And in California, a sick passenger on a flight from JFK to Los Angeles triggered an Ebola scare. In Boston, a man is in isolation at the hospital after complaining of Ebola-like symptoms.
That common sense request was not only denied, President Obama claims it won't make a difference.
If we institute a travel ban instead of the protocols that we put in place now, history shows that there is a likelihood of increased avoidance. And as a consequence, we could end up having more cases rather than less.
The Obama administration has already illustrated their preference to dangerously instigate an unyielding socialist position over the safety of American citizens. In 2013, Immigration and Customs Enforcement released into the United States 2,200 illegals, 629 of which that have criminal records ranging from repeated drunk driving offenses to aggravated felony, drug, sexual abuse, and homicide charges.
No one on that list was charged or convicted with murder, rape, or sexual abuse of a minor, were they?
They were not.
Was anyone charged or convicted of illicit trafficking in a controlled substance?
There were some with drug offenses. The individual I mentioned earlier, who is 68 and a lawful permanent resident.
Were any involved in child pornography?
Not of the ones that I am aware of the release, no.
So of the 2,228, you can testify that none of them were involved in child pornography?
To the best of my knowledge, I can testify the answer is no.
Well, to the best of your knowledge just means that you don't have any knowledge of it.
That information was leaked to the public only after USA Today made a Freedom of Information Act request. Although 418 charges of child sexual molestation and rape in North Carolina in 1 month alone went heavily unreported. As Obama waits until after the midterm elections to open the floodgates, what is driving the Obama administration's recklessness? Look no further than senior advisor to President Barack Obama, John P. Holdren. Holdren is the author of Ecoscience, the textbook that advocates putting drugs in the water supply to sterilize people, mandatory forced abortions, and a tyrannical eco-fascist dictatorship run by a planetary regime. Holdren's radical solutions to overpopulation are routinely discussed in the halls of the National Academy of Sciences. The National Academy of Sciences has published a shocking report which envisages a Chinese-style global one-child policy as the only means of reversing climate change and reducing global population to a sustainable number of 1 to 2 billion people. The white paper, entitled Human Population Reduction is Not a Quick Fix for Environmental Problems, authored by...
Sorry about that. The reason I let the population story continue on is because I just touched on it, I think, in the beginning of the story. And there's a lot of zealots out there that believe that population control is a popular issue out there and that a lot of people want it. They say it's needed to control with the food and medical and all the different issues out there. But I don't know if I'm a believer of that. I don't think we need to go out there and have population control. And a lot of people believe that's what was happening over in Africa. That's why they introduced AIDS. That's why they introduced Ebola over there, dengue fever. All that stuff is because of population control. And there's many documents out there that discuss the intentions behind all of this stuff. So next we're going to go into, I wanted to touch on this whole quarantine debate. And you had this lady come back out of to Maine. She went back to Maine after being quarantined. Now, when I think I put something out on one of my pages yesterday, and my philosophy is that the government should not be dictating it. Now, let me elaborate. Let me do a little bit of the story. So this nurse comes back. They read 101 temperature. She just came back from West Africa treating Ebola. So they did the appropriate thing. They said, we need to isolate and quarantine you. They did the inappropriate thing by putting her in a parking lot in a tent. You know, why not? You don't want to make her so uncomfortable. You put her in an isolation room in a hospital. We get that. Test her. It came back that she was okay. So they released her. So the first issue is how they went through the process, the quarantining into the parking lot. So then now they're saying mandatory quarantine in the house or wherever. And she said no, and the CDC and Obama came back and fought this. Now, lo and behold, her husband has something to do with the White House, and she worked for the CDC, or might still work for the CDC. There might have been some influence. So they came out and said, look, she was tested. She has nothing. And a lot, Christie's stance was, well, how do we know that it's not dormant for 21 days? How do we know that it won't show up just out of the blue one day? That she won't sneeze and it's still a live virus that can go out there, which is valid points. But here's the thing, and the judge on Fox made me see the light on this, folks. You're coming back from an airport. You get a temperature reading of 101. Do you want to be quarantined just because you got a temperature and because the government says so? Even though you test that you don't have dengue fever, you don't have Ebola, you don't have whatever disease it is, do you want to be able to be held in quarantine by the United States government? No. And that's where I think I differ from what they're doing. I don't think we have the power. I don't think we have the right now. They have a cop sitting out her door in Maine saying she can't leave even though she's on the honor system. And she says, hey, I'm going to leave if I want to. I'm on board in terms of what she's telling the government. You can't dictate this to me. I've been cleared. I don't have a temperature anymore. Now, as a doctor, I don't know if I do that. As a person, as Frank Abbruzzino, if I just came back from West Africa and I had 101 degree temperature, I'm a doctor or not a doctor. I'm knowledgeable on Ebola and the fact that there's an incubation period. It could still be within my system. I personally, if I could, I would go ahead and do an honor system and quarantine myself. I would not go out and walk amongst the public. But that's my opinion. And I think that's where a lot of people are upset with this lady, is she's a bit selfish. Now, is she doing this to make a point with the government saying, you can't dictate this to me? I don't know. Possibly that's the case. But that's the concern I have with this individual. And so that's the whole debate on this whole Hickox quarantine issue. So right now, the latest story is she has a cop outside there, and he's going to prevent her somehow from not going out and mixing and mingling with the public. Now, you have the whole Ebola crisis. And, I foresee this thing exploding once the election's over. Once the election's over, I think it's going to turn into a major issue. I think stuff's being hidden. Just like the market. The market's inflated in a huge bubble. And the president's out there basically dictating, cherry pick your inflation numbers. Cherry pick your unemployment numbers. Go ahead and, even though QE's ended, they still got the zero interest loans. And they're out there doing all this stuff just to keep that market afloat, especially until elections. Now, Obama would like it up his whole term, and then he doesn't care. But it's amazing the outside controls that our marketplace has, the influence it has on it. Yet the common folk don't know this. They're out there investing their money. They're out there buying the houses. They don't know about these bubbles. They don't know about the outside forces that are pressuring the different markets, the different systems out there. It's crazy. Okay, we'll be right back after this commercial. Get some of this great apparel from theRogueRant.com or the Uncensored Report or theVintageScoop.com. We have hats, shirts, coffee mugs. They say educate, inspire, and change. Or for my Scoop fans, it'll say the Vintage Scoop, Sarasota Scoop, etc. Help me with this operation so I can continue to get a fresh perspective on the news out to the masses. Thanks a lot and have a great day. Just go to my website and click on the icon. All right, and now we're back. Now we're going to talk a little bit more about Obamacare. As you may or may not know, if you watch this show, I am in the medical industry. I do medical billing consulting type services. Been in it for 14 years. That's where I make my money. I do all this stuff for free, the Facebook and everything, this show, all for free just to get my message, my communication out there. And the goal is to educate, inspire, and educate, change, and inspire people to get out there and make a difference in the world. Obamacare. You know, now we're hearing stuff that's just, I didn't get a chance to read up on this story now, but they're saying that foreign diplomats, if they have the right visa, can now be covered under Obamacare. So now us, the taxpayers, are picking up the health care of these foreigners that are here on a visa, these diplomats. Why can't their own country pick up their health care? And then you hear that in addition to this latest story that just came out. And basically, Obama administration is allowing fertility clinics to sell U.S. citizenship. And this is all under Obamacare. He's decided to let the assisted reproductive industry sell citizenship to the U.S. Foreign parents who never even set foot in the States, they can essentially become citizens through their kids. Because these kids are born, they're being in the fertility clinics are shooting them into a U.S. citizen. They're birthing the kid, sending them back to their foreign country with all the entitlements of the United States. This giveaway is accomplished by a surprise change in the regulation, which was redefined in the term of mother, to include women who contract to carry out other women's embryos to birth. So under this whole policy, this new policy, a mother who meets the definition but does not have a genetic relationship with the child, guess what? They'll be able to transmit their U.S. citizenship to them. They'll be able to do that. And it's all due to this expanded definition by the USCIS of what a mother and parent is. And this change means that a woman who is a U.S. citizen can be hired by a reproductive clinic to become pregnant with an overseas embryo, give birth, send the kid back to China, Saudi Arabia, with their passport in hand, all their entitlements in hand, and everything they need to go out there and become a U.S. citizen. That's right, folks. Obamacare, they can get that. Benefits, anything they want. They have full citizenship, and we should be concerned about this. And then how about the doctors? This is something many of you may not know, but something I've been seeing already. And that's the number of physicians nationwide that are declining to accept the plans for healthcare exchanges. Because the Obama healthcare exchanges are essentially Medicaid programs, or pay essentially like Medicaid programs. So they did this study, the American Action Forum. And they said as of May 14, 214,000 doctors would not participate in Obamacare. And I believe that because out there, owning a consulting company, I know many of my doctors, they don't like being involved in Medicaid or Medicare patients. Now, Medicare, they tend to, just because the pressures that are bared on them by the government, but Medicaid, they're staunchly against. And while some Obamacare kinks have been worked out over the past year, exchange plans remain unfriendly to doctors because of the scheduled fee schedules. And it puts physicians in an especially difficult financial situation because you're expecting doctors to eat the cost of the patients who discontinue coverage. That's another caveat that's in there. Essentially, they can stop paying their bill but you have to continue providing insurance for them up to 90 days. The first 30 days after they stop paying their bill, the insurance company bites. The second, the 30 to 60, 60 to 90, the doctor takes the bite and will not give reimbursement. So even though the guy's coming in and saying, hey, I have insurance, here's my card, because he hasn't paid for a month or 2 months, you still have to treat because he's got that Obamacare card, but they will not reimburse it. They don't have to reimburse you. And then there's the whole fee schedule. You know, you have private plans that generally pay doctors, let's say $1 for performing some type of service. In comparison, Medicare pays 80 cents, okay? But these exchange plans, they're a lot like Medicaid. They pay 60 cents for the same exact treatment, which puts Obamacare more in line with the Medicaid reimbursement. And it gives the physicians a low reimbursement. And this is all because the administration's strong-handed push to keep Obamacare premium hikes as low as possible. In order to keep the price low, insurers have cut costs somewhere. They got to cut it somewhere, right? Companies move just to cover narrow networks with few in-network physicians. You don't see as many doctors in network. They're cutting them out. They're offering lower reimbursement to the doctors. So essentially, your quality is going to go down too, because what's going to happen is a lot of these doctors, they're going to look at the reimbursement and they're going to say, you know, it's not worth it. So what you get is the newer doctors. And trust me, I've been out there. I've dealt with a lot of the newer doctors. They jump at every insurance company they can get onto just to get on there, just to start getting people into the door. It's a numbers game. So you're going to end up getting a lot of the newer doctors that aren't as experienced working on you, treating you, because the experienced doctors are like, hey, I have my base. I have the commercial insurance entities, the Blue Crosses of the world. I'm fine. And it's the structure of this whole Affordable Care Act itself puts doctors who accept plans purchased on Obamacare exchanges at risk of never being paid, like I said. That's one of the biggest issues. And you have to be concerned about it, folks. And I did mess up. I wanted to correct myself. It's the first 60 days after customers stop paying, but they're still insured. The insurance company takes the bite. But after that, the final 30 days, the customer's insurance can terminate. Doctors who see those patients will not be paid. And it adds up. I've seen bills that have been way over $10,000, $20,000 in just 30 days. So it's a very unfriendly climate for physicians. Very unfriendly. And it's something we should all be concerned about. And, you know, and then just the overall effect in this. I saw something yesterday. I forget the exact numbers, but bottom line is I think a significant amount of enrollees into Obamacare have not started contributing or paying a dime towards it. So even though they were out there claiming 7 million enrollees, maybe only 3, I think it was like 3 million, somewhere in that neighborhood, have actually decided to pay into it. And these are people that it's not like you're paying $500, folks. Your premium might be $500, but you're getting $300 in subsidies from the government Obamacare program, and you're actually only paying $200. But I posted something on my exchange, on my Educate, Inspire, and Affect Change page, and essentially came out and said that before Obamacare, I didn't have insurance. It's a picture. Now with Obamacare, I still don't have insurance, and I get taxed $5,000. You got to love that. We'll be right back. Hey, everybody, this is Frankie, and I'm here today to introduce Longevity. It's a great nutritional supplement to anybody that's eating right or not eating right. I take supplements on a regular basis, and Longevity cannot be beat, especially at some of the great price points. So go to theroguerant.com or the uncensoredreport.com and click on shop. Go down to Longevity, click on it, and you'll be helping out the operations of the station so that we can continue to bring you a fresh perspective on alternative news. Longevity, check it out today. Okay, next we're going into, I'm going to play this little video. It's Matt Kaiser, and even though the guy looks a little goofy, sounds a little goofy, he's actually very intelligent, and he's right most of the time. He's going to discuss the petrodollar, and my biggest fear out there is that many of you don't get the whole petrodollar scenario. So he's going to expand upon it, and basically that's what's holding our dollar in there right now. You have this new brick out there with Brazil, China, and Russia, and South America, India. And how is that going to impact us? Because what they're trying to do is take the dollar off so that it's not the reserve currency. So we will no longer be able to print money to pay our bills. We're going to have to actually pay our bills with the money we have. Austerity. And a lot of people fear this will just kill the economy. So I wanted to play this video, and it goes into a little bit how the petrodollar works and some of the concerns that are out there with it. So let's get this queued up here and go.
So am I crazy, or is the West trying to downplay this deal just a little bit?
Well, Anissa, what we're seeing here is a transition from the petrodollar to the petro-ruble. So for decades now, the price of oil and gas has been priced in U.S. dollars. With this $400 billion deal with China, we now see a shift of the pricing in energy going toward Russia and China. This means the U.S. dollar as world reserve currency, its days are numbered. And this is also manifest in the actions by Russia this past month to almost quadruple their purchase of gold. So Russia's been buying gold every month for several years. They have now quadrupled that monthly purchase because they're getting ready for the time when the U.S. dollar starts to rapidly lose value against other currencies. Gold will start to be marked up aggressively. So both China and Russia have been buying gold. They're now going to price energy in something other than the U.S. dollar. So this is really the dawn of the petro-ruble.
They couldn't agree, Moscow and Beijing, on a price for a really long time, and it's still a so-called commercial secret. Why?
Can you repeat the question?
They're calling it a commercial secret, the actual precise price of this gas flowing to China. It's a big deal, of course, but why can't we know the exact price? What does that mean between for China and Russia, how close they are, how maybe they don't want to release that to the West? I mean, is this a protocol?
Well, the price that they negotiated, whether I think Russia was looking for $400 per 1,000 cubic meters. Russia is looking for $360 per 1,000 cubic meters. So there was some last-minute haggling over price. It's a multi-year deal. It's China's got to pay whether they take delivery of the gas or not. I think more importantly, though, above and beyond the details of this specific deal, Elisa, is the fact that on a macroeconomic basis, the U.S. dollar is now poised to lose its status as world reserve currency. This is extraordinarily important in the post-war era, where the U.S. has used the dollar as a bludgeon to increase its global hegemony, to buy stuff from China and never pay for it. They just issue more dollars. Once the dollar loses its place as world reserve currency, the price of energy in America will double and triple. That's the underlying economic assumption that we have to make here. That's what the U.S. is not telling the people in the U.S. Plus, let me point out another very interesting fact that came out today. All the fracking that's going on in California, 2/3 of America's fracking, and remember, fracking is going to be their answer to this deal between Russia and China to supply them with energy. Well, it turns out, according to today's report, that the estimate of the amount of gas that California will generate through its fracking fields has been overstated by 96%. Which is to say that America's fracking industry is dead on arrival. There's not going to be any gas from America's fracking industry. China and Russia are not going to completely monopolize the global gas industry, and they're going to price it in something other than the U.S. dollars. Whether they're haggling over $360 or $400 per 1,000 cubic meters is irrelevant given the bigger picture.
Just briefly, Max, what option does the United States have?
What options do they have? Their options for the last few decades has been to bomb and take. That's been their options. That's been the Americans' oil policy, has been to use the Pentagon and the dollar as instruments of global hegemony to secure the world's oil supply. You see this happening in Africa, where the U.S. is busy creating all kinds of mischief in Africa to secure oil, where their competitor China is in Africa just cutting deals or cutting checks. And of course, China's got trillions of dollars worth of reserves, and they can write lots of checks. So the U.S.
Okay, so then ask yourself once again, folks, why are we in China? Are we in China are we sending 4,000 troops not to China, are we sending 4,000 troops to Africa as part of AFRICOM to help fight Ebola? Or are we sending them to disrupt the influence China has there on the oil? Like Max is talking about how China now has a tremendous amount of influence there. All right, folks, this is the Uncensored Report. I call it the Uncensored because I don't come in, nobody censors me. I don't really, all these commercials I put up, I can make money or I can't make money, but they don't have any say on what I can put out there. Like major media, like the news shows, what they do is they have people that tell them what they can put out. It's amazing. I sit here and I'll talk to one of the local guys, Josh, about WWSB, and I'll say, here's the story. Oh, my producer says I can't do that. I got to do this fluff story. And it's like, oh my God. All right, folks, but this has been Frankie. We'll be back tomorrow at 11. If you're in Sarasota County, remember the Dickie Beck's benefit concert Saturday, free barbecue, and then the concert starts at 7:30. I will be there in the VIP. I think I'm in a VIP section, but I'm going to get out there and mix and mingle around, check it out, and see what it's all about there. Toys for Tots benefits from this, and kids, starving kids out there, so bring toys. Get a chance to win a Charles Daniels guitar. Meet Dickie Betts, one of the founding members of the Allman Brothers, Grammy Award-winning guitarist. So this has been Frankie, and I will see or talk to everybody later.